thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Yes. Good morning, everybody. That's right. It is March 3rd, you guys. And today is National Read Across America Day.
Still allow reading?
Yep. Just good books, though, not the bad books, not the child indoctrination books.
Oh, so is that what you guys call it?
That's what they are. You know what they are.
Yeah. Called censorship, but you know,
it's not censorship.
Burn all the books.
It's not censorship. It's indoctrination of children. It's also National Soup It Forward Day, you guys.
No soup for you.
Yeah. I feel like, you know what I'm saying? Soup Nazis coming out today. No soup for you.
Oh, just Nazis.
Oh, God. He's just, oh, man. Sometimes I just feed you the wrong way. Yeah. It's, man, I wish Jenny Beth was here. She'll be here shortly, but she's gonna love this one. It's National Mulled Wine Day, you guys.
I love mulled wine.
I could see that. I could see Yarrow mulling some wine.
No, mulled wine has got this heavy spice thing going on, which basically is mids for wine. If you have to spice your wine ain't good to begin with. So no, that's not touching my lips.
Okay.
It's just a fun Christmas, Thanksgiving tradition, dude. It's not
like the spray pack of wine.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's kind of like the spray pack of wine for sure.
It's totally a spray pack. It's like so stuffing glue, but I don't do that either. Like,
only they are natural ingredients that you can control yourself.
Fair enough. This
one's doesn't like to have fun with his wine.
This next one is definitely for me, Rico. You're gonna love this. It's National Cold Cuts Day.
Yeah, Jason, you love your cold cuts.
Mm-hmm.
Nitrates up.
That's right. The coldest, bro. I'm the coldest. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the roast beef sandwich.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You've got to be kidding me. That is the least flavorful cut. Okay, I had a pastrami sandwich for dinner last night at a restaurant.
Bro, you missed the joke, dude.
Of course he did.
Maybe you've never had a good roast beef.
There was a height limit on that joke, Jesse.
It's all about the beef curtain algae.
Yeah, exactly.
Beef curtain, baby.
Mm-hmm. And last but not least, it's also National I Want You to Be Happy Day. And I want you to be happy. You at home, you right there. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Happiness.
Even you too, Jeremy.
I wish I had more hands.
Yes.
To get that comment 4 thumbs up.
Oh, man. Thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, Instagram, Facebook, as well as on Kick and on our very own website at www.highat9news.com. So welcome to everyone joining us from any one of those platforms. And we are kicking it off with the dope dad himself, who's rocking a beanie today just because he's just that kind of guy. He's trying to keep his dreads locked down, apparently, because you know what I mean? He's not down with the big lockdowns. That's right. It is the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte.
Thank you, Jason. Call me Beanie Man today.
I bet.
It's funny you're talking. It's funny you're talking about moldy wine. We're going to talk about moldy weed here in California today. So, Santa Cruz County officials are calling for a shift in regulatory oversight from the Department of Cannabis Control to other state agencies over concerns about pesticide contamination in California cannabis products. The arguments are made in a deep dive by Paige St. John of the LA Times, with the DCC being accused of failing to protect public health, citing widespread contamination found in testing, particularly in vape products. The article begins with St. John calling out California regulators' failure to update standards after a year of product tests showing pesticides in legal cannabis products, and Santa Cruz County commissioners say the delay warrants a public health emergency and shifting responsibility to other state agencies. A who's who of cannabis California cannabis players are quoted in the piece, with detailed exchanges between DCC Director Nicole Elliott's office and veteran Cannabis Coalition founder Eric Gopel. And if you have time to dig in, I think it's well worth the full read over at high9news.com. But I'm going to just summarize this long-ass article for my reading today. The county's resolution seeks to transfer pesticide oversight to the Department of Pesticide Regulation and Cannabis Lab accreditation to the State Water Resources Control Board, while also expanding the list of pesticides that cannabis products must be screened for. The DCC has faced mounting criticism for its slow response to contamination issues, allegations of mismanagement and political influence tied to Governor Gavin Newsom all the way to the top. Previous independent investigations carried out by the LA Times have revealed regulatory failures, whistleblower complaints, and lawsuits alleging fraudulent cannabis testing. The lawmakers have hesitated to intervene, with some citing fear for political repercussions. Amid increasing scrutiny, the DCC has ramped up enforcement, issuing recalls, sanctions, and embargoes on contaminated products. However, critics argue that these actions came too late and that regulatory intervention is still needed to ensure consumer safety. Santa Cruz County is now seeking support from other local governments to push for stronger oversight of cannabis contamination. I think it's obvious at this point that something has to be done in the California cannabis lab testing arena. With all these positive tests, recalls, and lab shopping stories we've seen flood the airwaves, it really ain't a good look for anybody involved here in the California cannabis industry. The question remains if handing oversight duties over to state officials over the specialized cannabis divisions where they are now would yield more satisfactory results, but I guess anything would be better than the position we're currently in, with more questions being raised than answers given. I'm Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street for High at 9 News, and I'm interested in hearing the rest of the team and what you guys think about California's lab testing crisis, how that should be handled.
You know, it's funny, Rico, because when we had just street weed, you know what I'm saying? We never had any of these problems ever until legalization.
Yeah, it's kind of like how Donald Trump handled, COVID testing. The less you test, the less positive results, right?
Hey, if it works, if people aren't complaining, they're just, you know what I'm saying? They're still moving on. Ain't nobody. It's not, no harm, no foul.
I guess not.
Mm-hmm. What do you go for it, Yarrow?
This is closer to your neck of the woods up there, Yarrow. What are you thinking?
I'm sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't think testing should just get handed over to the state of California because none of these labs are capable of actually doing it?
Well, I think that's a curious position from a Republican to say the government can do better than private enterprise.
Well,
so what I would say is quite simply, my limited understanding, albeit I was an advisor to a multi-state testing laboratory company for many years, my limited understanding is that there was no standardization. And because of that lack of standardization, we didn't have a single way of doing things.
That's fair.
And so
that's fair, and that's true.
I think the state could have established a framework like the ANSI standards or the ISO whatever. I mean, yeah, they needed to be ISO 17,000 accredited, but there wasn't like a single way that everything had to be done the exact same way for the exact same lab. And so without that, I think the outsider was able to immediately say, because there's no standardization, because there's a greater fluctuation in results between labs, the whole thing is crooked. And ultimately, what the state is tasked with doing, in my opinion, is providing a level of consumer confidence that you can't get otherwise. And to me, the foundation of that was lab testing, safety of products, and the idea that there was this independent lab that couldn't have interests in the space outside of being a lab, and that would just tell the truth and say exactly what those readings were. I think the lack of standardization, and then what appears to be a slow response by the state DCC when issues were uncovered, coupled with not updating the list of banned pesticides quick enough to accommodate all of the things that people could put on their crops. I think that's the perfect storm for the FUBAR that we have right now. And so do I think the government can solve it? I think the government is in a position to solve things, but I don't necessarily think that you can look to the people who created a problem to solve a problem. And so I think this was in many ways avoidable. And it seems like the under-responsiveness is the final nail in the coffin in California to regulated cannabis, between the lack of brick and mortar retail access and the overtaxation. And you get rid of that plank, that foundational safety, the consumer, the soccer mom, the whatever, the can of cure is coming in going, well, I know I'm going to get good, clean product, and I know it's not going to be a THC reading just based on a pay-to-play model. You get rid of that, and I don't know what the heck we're doing here to begin with. So I'm very sad. It's roast beef and pastrami day for me, because this is the meat, and I don't understand how we're going to get past this until it's solved. And the DCC may be doing a good job, maybe not be doing a good job. There's a whistleblower person who said they got fired, and it was because they had raised these concerns. There were the articles that came out of LA last summer around cartridges. And I need an industry that can protect my body, my lungs, my health, my well-being, and still allow me to get high.
That's asking for a lot, Yarrow.
What I'm confused about is why they're just jumping straight to handing it over to the state. Right. Why doesn't the state create an oversight? Why aren't these labs, as you said, Yarrow, first of all, there should be standards created by the state that the labs have to adhere to. And then why doesn't the state just create an oversight commission that looks at the labs and makes sure they're doing things properly and checks on them once in a while?
Because that takes too much of their revenue
up. Point of the DCC in the first place. I think
they're not doing it clearly.
Yeah, the whole point is come to a tipping point, and they're looking to rectify that, I guess, by handing it over at this point to the state rather than keeping it under the cannabis division.
And then the second part of that is that, how in the world do you think that any government organization in California is not going to be just as corrupt as the private labs?
That part.
Well, so
makes no sense.
So I think that works from a pretty dim perspective that like taps into the frustration in America, but isn't thoroughly accurate or really representative of the way the world works. I mean, like, those are great talking points, and you can throw those out there. But at the end of the day, that is like the gauzy conspiracy bullshit. Like, no, not everything is corrupt. No, some people are just incompetent. And as public policy is based on the process of adjustment to policy based on outcomes, nothing ever gets baked the right way. It gets adjusted and tweaked and modified and optimized over time. And so, well, I don't think we've seen that. And I think that's the real failing, Jesse, is that when you've got a list of chemicals that are still not on the banned list, but we're testing down to the parts per billion, that is incomplete public policy.
So, Yarrow, do you believe that it's too early for the nuclear option as prescribed in the story?
Well, so this came out of Santa Cruz, and I followed this article the moment it hit the internet. And Santa Cruz is a beautiful place, right? I mean, you know, how many schools' mascot is the banana slug, okay? Yep. I mean, this is the home of granola.
The banana slug?
Yeah, that's true, yeah. Yep, Santa Cruz, that's true.
And the didgeridoo, okay? There's Santa Cruz. It deserves its place, not just as, you know, an Appalachian legacy region, the hills up there on Summit Road, but also a place that has been at the forefront of wellness for a long time, whether those are juice formulations or cannabis. And so the fact that this happened at a deeply local level in a geography, in a place that hails, that has a, in its DNA, this idea around wellness and food safety and having natural products, it doesn't surprise me at all. And I actually think it's kind of a perfect example of the way we want democracy to work in general, right? That when the higher levels of government are not providing what the people believe they are entitled to, that the lower levels of government are saying, not on our watch. We're going to take the lead on this, and we're going to create ourselves a very visible position, pushing back against what we don't think is working. And here's the North Star, and let us help you get there. And so I just think it's so Santa Cruz and so cool. And I think it actually could be very, very effective and productive at the end of the day.
Interesting.
Interesting. I mean, I agree with you guys. There definitely has to be some type of a standardization that the state puts into place if we do expect to get past this point and keep testing in the private sector. And I am all for keeping it in the private sector. I just don't see how we're going to get around this. And like I just don't understand where all the clean weed went that we used to smoke in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
I think the audience is nailing it. There's a bunch of people saying, it started with Nick and Christopher Brady, who are saying this is a problem of scaling and corporatization. You never had this problem when you were dealing with your small grower.
So what you're saying, Jesse, Barney, is that this is all the fault of the man with the pigtails.
It's all Steve D'Angelo's fault.
Could start there, sure.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about this, Jeremy?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not even going to act like I'm an expert on this particular subject, but I would say, like, you were talking about Santa Cruz being a big health and wellness hotspot. Wouldn't it make sense for the consumer, if they are worried about that, to have certain labs that they know it's like, okay, I only buy products that have this lab's approval label because I know that they're whatever.
The consumer doesn't know the labs. Yeah, because consumers don't even know the labs.
Well, but that would then be like the education of themselves on if they like.
Yeah, these labs need to market themselves better.
How many people that are just simply potheads really give a shit about what we're talking about? Honestly, like they're just trying to get high.
No, bullshit. 98%. I
don't believe that.
A group of people that are more concerned with what they put in their body than people who are choosing to combust a vegetative material, put it in their lungs, and understand that there's some inherent risks theoretically, typically with that. Some UCSF studies notwithstanding, I've never found a group of people that were more, they want to know where their spirulina was grown. They want to know the name of the cow they're eating. They want to know what kind of heirloom carrot is in the salad. I mean, I think that, that convergence of health, wellness, cannabis, homeostasis, and really being aware of what people are putting in their body, really, I think, honestly, and I don't mean to sound too geocentric, but California can take a oversized victory lap in terms of setting a high bar. And I think the majority of cannabis consumers care very much. They care about the water they drink, they care about the toothpaste they use, and they care about the kush.
I don't agree with that.
I can't speak outside of California. I have a thoroughly California lens.
Yeah, that's really only a California thing for sure.
That's what I'm getting at. I mean, that is not my experience with people around here, but
to your point, Jeremy, there were a couple of labs that did try, but they were just failed attempts, and they didn't really follow through on them to actually make a name for themselves and to put themselves out towards the public. I say the big one, rest in peace, was CannaSafe, prior to COVID, and then they got popped for lab shopping too.
Yep.
Lo and behold. But I think that'd be a great idea for a lot of these testing labs to really separate themselves from the rest of the pack and let people know we do clean testing. And I know Bel Costa is doing some stuff currently to raise their profile. Encore Labs is trying to do the same. SE Labs, I'm known to many in the industry, has been a leading voice in that arena, but it's still not really common amongst the everyday weed smoker. Like, where did you get this tested at? Are you really looking at these COAs? How many people is actually taking their camera on their phone and checking out that QR code on the back of their product? Like, nobody really. So I think it's something that can be pushed.
So would you say that so if it's given to the government, right?
Mhm.
Would then they work with like the testing centers you're talking about that are like more well known? Wouldn't they be the ones that kind of are putting in the regulation framework anyway? They would have a huge voice in that, wouldn't they?
What Santa Cruz is proposing, that they just all out take over. That it's just a moot point at this juncture. But
do they have the
I don't know what
infrastructure to do so?
Wait, I gotta interrupt, and it's not because my coffee is stronger than anybody else's.
Oh boy, here we go.
Santa Cruz is proposing.
Yeah.
But I did my homework on this, so allow me. Santa Cruz is
please.
proposing that the testing be migrated over to the existing government agencies that already test other products. So they're just saying, listen, guys and gals, we already have the infrastructure, the knowledge base, and the agencies to test safely for products. Move that testing or the oversight of that testing over to those agencies, and don't house it under the DCC just because it's weed. And to me, that actually makes sense. That seems like an economy of scale.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense, because these are all agricultural testing labs. So Yarrow, I would actually I could get behind that.
So is it similar?
Because they do. I mean, California ag pretty much feeds the entire country.
Yeah. Exactly.
The scale of what they do and what they test for, and like if you're an organic farm in California, you got to go through the business to get that done.
And I'm getting goosebumps at the idea that this lowers the cost to the cannabis cultivator, because instead of having something niche and specialized and overly regulated by the regulators, like they're just going, okay, we're going to treat ag like ag, we're going to treat consumer products like consumer products. All cannabis has ever wanted is to be treated like a normal industry, and to me, this seems like a normalization that will reduce costs, increase consumer safety. Like, I'm not mad at it. Hats off to Santa Cruz.
So
Jeremy, go ahead.
Similar to Pennsylvania trying to legalize under agriculture. That would be a good thing to look at, is like if that works for them. I would imagine that they would be testing under their agricultural procedures.
If you're going to assume that Pennsylvania is going to do anything that California does, I think you're totally off base. Pennsylvania is its own
legalized through the agriculture department.
Yeah, but just because they do that doesn't, like, they're going to be like, no, California did it. Now we want to stay the hell away from there because California just fucks everything up.
Pennsylvania is planning on doing things the way California did, because I believe Governor Shapiro is planning on taxing the shit out of regulated cannabis and then giving a bunch.
Well, that's just Democrats, bro. That's not California that relevant. That's just Democrats.
Well, yeah, the Republicans.
Right, we've spent 22 minutes on this one, baby.
All right, we're gonna roll. We're gonna roll into our first commercial, and we are gonna be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, you know? But I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility. So you know you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. He does the stuff.
Brisket in the Shire.
Yes. Straight from the Shire. Oh, man. You ready, Rico? We're back.
We are back, y'all. And up next is the partying partisan, known to many as the highest Republican alive. If you are in search in California of a right-leaning faction in the cannabis industry. Look no further than this man, Jason Beck, the Sultan of Spin himself, here to break it down.
Oh, boy.
Second story of the day, Jason Beck.
Oh, man. Good morning, Rico. Happy Monday, everybody. It's Monday, the most important day of the week, you guys. Just kicks everything off, and it's the start, this final month and the end of the first quarter of 2025, you guys. Wow.
You made the year a lot more complicated than it needs to be, Jason.
That's just the way it is, Rico. But let me tell you something about things being more complicated than they really need to be, because Governor Ken Paxton, Lieutenant Governor Ken Paxton, or Lieutenant Governor, loses a bid to keep Dallas from enforcing a marijuana charter amendment. You guys, this is great news for cannabis, guys. The Attorney General is suing the city, saying a voter-approved new charter rule banning cops for arresting people suspected of carrying less than 4 ounces of marijuana is illegal. That's right. A Dallas County District Judge on Friday rejected Attorney General Ken Paxton's request to block Dallas temporarily from enforcing a ban on police arresting or citing people solely accused of low-level marijuana offenses. Judge Dale Tillery told state attorneys in court he was denying Paxton's request for a temporary injunction because they could not prove that the Dallas City Council, city manager, and interim police chief overstepped their authority by implementing a recent voter-approved charter amendment decriminalizing possession of less than 4 ounces of marijuana. The state argued Dallas is violating state law because adult use marijuana is still illegal in Texas. And Tillery noted that while the state law does say local governing and law enforcement authorities can adopt a policy that prevents them from fully enforcing drug laws, it says nothing about what to do when faced with voter-backed and approved propositions. The Texas Supreme Court says it's their ministerial duty, and they have to recognize it, Tillery said, referring to city officials. The judge added the state could continue pursuing the lawsuit challenging. However, the character position is being applied to trial, but disagreed the actions of the city in response to the November election were illegal. Tillery noted that while state law does say local governing and law enforcement authorities can't adopt a policy that prevents them from fully enforcing drug laws, it says nothing about what to do when faced with voter-backed and approved propositions. The Texas Supreme Court says it's their... why did that double... I'm sorry, you guys. My bad. Paxton sued Dallas, all 15 members of the Dallas City Council, and interim city manager Kimberly Bizor Tolbert told interim police chief Michael Ego in November, after 66% of voters approved Proposition R, that the city charter amendment bars Dallas police from using the smell of marijuana as probable cause for searches and stops them from arresting people or issuing them citations on suspicion of having less than 4 ounces of marijuana. Dallas is the largest Texas city to ban arrests for low-level marijuana offenses, and the proposition was backed by Austin-based nonprofit Ground Game Texas, which gained enough signatures to get it onto the election ballot last November. The group, which has led similar efforts around Texas, said the charter charge was necessary to address the disappropriate number of black people arrested for low-level offense and help direct police resources to more serious crimes. The Attorney General contends Proposition R is unconstitutional, and Dallas doesn't have the legal authority to make officers enforce it. In a quote, he says, "We don't challenge the fact that the Dallas Police Department and the city of Dallas, like every municipality, has finite resources and need to balance and prioritize those resources," said Zachary Rhines, a lawyer in the state attorney general's office on Friday. In an additional quote, he says, "What we're really saying is that the blanket policy saying you are not going to do this absent one or two circumstances, pulling discretion away from police officers. That case-by-case discretion is essentially wrong," he says. Elizabeth Chandler, a Dallas assistant city attorney, told Tillery that the city is still enforcing drug laws, just not the way that the state wants them to. She argued that granting the state a temporary injunction against Proposition R would infringe on the city's discretionary action and the will of the voters. Paxton has also filed lawsuits against Austin, Denton, and other cities where similar voter-supported mandates on weed have passed. Judges have thus far overturned similar Paxton lawsuits against Austin and San Marcos, but he is appealing both. And not every city where voters have approved some marijuana decriminalization is siding with the election results. City leaders in Lockhart and Bastrop say they won't uphold decriminalizing up to 4 ounces of marijuana despite voter approval. And Ego testified in court on Friday that Dallas officers still have the option of arresting people in possession of 4 ounces or less of marijuana if it's tied to a high priority drug investigation, violent felony, or if weed is the substance used by an intoxicated driver. He said he didn't know of any officer who had been disciplined for violating the department's directive to enforce Proposition R or who had been referred to remedial training related to upholding it. And Ego said officers can still seize small amounts of marijuana from people who are arrested, but once they are released from custody, the weed can be returned with the rest of their property. Wow! Look at that, you guys. They can get their weed back in the city of Dallas as long as you got 4 ounces or less. Man, I hope these guys calibrate their scales properly, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. Jesse, I think you're on mute.
This is awesome. This is great news for Texas.
That's right. The Lone Star State.
He's getting turned away.
Yeah. He's
always the bad guy.
He's getting served up right now by all these local municipalities.
That's great. Leah, we're cheering for you and everybody else in Texas.
Yes, this is great news, Dallas.
Yeah. J.R. Paxton all the way.
J.R. Ewing must have been behind this voter initiative also.
So it's basically a decriminalization act that he was trying to fight, right?
I wouldn't call it a decriminalization act. They're basically
like decrim light.
I mean, they're saying
that's a good synopsis.
They're saying you know, is 4 ounces or less is kind of the threshold. If you're you know 4 ounces and 1 gram, you're going to get charged, basically. But here's my question.
But under that, they're not allowed to.
Here's my question. Here's my real question.
Say, Yarrow?
I said Jesse did summarize it. Yeah, it's a deprioritization of cannabis law enforcement and saying this is not our most pressing issue. And the challenge, obviously, is that the will of the voter was 66% on this, and that there was support not only amongst local policymakers, but also the police. And so typically the police are a holdout, right? In no small measure because a lot of funding for prohibition is beneficial to large law enforcement agencies, and they were in favor of it. So this bitch, Paxton, sued everybody. He sued the chief of police. I mean, think about what kind of bitch you need to be to sue the chief of police over something the voters voted on, where the chief of police and the law enforcement agency is saying, okay, yeah, we can get behind this. We have broad consensus. There's support with local policymakers, support with the citizenry, and we're going to get behind this. And the AG decides to sue the chief of police personally, which is some fucked up shit, a terrible use of taxpayer funds. Next thing you know, these people have to not only do their job, but worry about this fucking whiner. And you know, it's like Texas is a weird bag. On one hand, it's all about, you know, personal liberties, and on the other hand, it's not. And this Paxton is just, I can't think of one good thing to say about this guy.
I mean, and not to mention he's a grifter. He's not even from Texas. He's from Maryland.
Oh, that makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Come on, it's not beat up on Maryland, eh?
I can beat up on Maryland all day. It's a crazy state. Yeah, they do a lot of wackadoodle things.
Yeah, it's brutal there.
Yeah.
It is.
Probably not as brutal as being a medical cannabis patient in Texas.
I don't know. It depends on if you're on the street or not.
Oh man, El Guapotron is in the chat. It says, "My Paxton packs, Mylar packs didn't sell. Neither did the Pax Pod knockoffs called Paxtons. I'll keep grinding harder than Paxton and Grinder."
He's the Dr. Seuss of the chat. That alliteration is beautiful.
Yes, that's good, Guap. That is pretty funny, bro. Good to see you today. Jenny Beth, so nice of you to join us today, Jenny Beth. Are you on the run from the cops right now? Oh, she froze.
Oh, she's in California Wi-Fi land.
Yeah, you're breaking up. You might as well just mute yourself, because your signal sucks balls. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
well, balls, huh?
Yeah, balls to the walls. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have any thoughts on this? Any final thoughts on this, Jeremy? Before we move on.
I mean, other than shout out to Jeanette, who wore the cannabis outfit, who got all the signatures to get that bill done.
Mm-hmm.
She was telling me about it. Basically, their first approach was go out normally, and then she realized if she put a big weed hat on, then all the people that were down to sign it came up to her.
That's a good tactic.
Yeah,
it's like power bait.
Yeah, and she said it was hard because a lot of the people wanted to sign, but they weren't residents of Dallas. They lived in the county and stuff like that. None of it counted. They had to. It was they put in a lot of work, and I mean, just in general, this concept that's being pushed by the right of the will of the people, but then you have a voter initiative with 66%, and the attorney general is suing everybody because he doesn't like the results. That's not democracy. It's a pretty blatant, disrespect to what democracy is. Honestly, I think cannabis should be on the ballot in every city all around the country. Why not? And some states don't even have ballot initiatives. I mean, really, this is Paxton's just preparing for war with this. What is it? The Bill 3 or something?
Yeah,
like that?
SB 3. Senate Bill 3. Yeah.
It's all political maneuvering for that, because while he has a lawsuit against all these people, they got to worry about that. They can't fight against him on that. I mean, that's what it seems like to me. Is just he has put it upon himself to be the Harry Anslinger of 2025.
The one part that confuses me with this story is they're saying that they can't use the smell of cannabis to as probable cause to search unless it smells like more than 4 ounces. So I want to know what smell level that kicks at. Like how loud does your weed have to be in order for it to smell like it's more than 4 ounces?
I've had a gram of weed that smells like more than 4 ounces.
You and me both, bro. Man,
But what world are we living in where Texas doesn't even have an adult use program and is saying that the smell is not probable cause, and New York has an adult use program and is now insisting on inserting the smell as probable cause? This is crazy.
Hey, the ever-changing cannabis industry, we cover it all here every Monday through Friday for you.
I'd argue adding hemp, legalizing hemp made this smell thing in question already.
Yes.
I mean, how can you smell the difference between smokable hemp and adult use marijuana? You can't.
It's all THCA at the end of the day, Jeremy.
I'm well aware. South Carolina's the king of THCA.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Jenny Beth, are you able to do your story, or do you want us to come back to you later when you're in a more stable location?
Well, you can come back, but I want to do my story because I got some breaking news.
Oh yeah,
breaking news.
Is it breaking?
Oh, it's a shit show.
Oh, it's a shit show.
Breaking.
Yeah. You need to be in a better place. You keep on breaking up when you talk.
Well, good. I'm gonna get to a better place. I drive fast.
All right. Well, hurry up. Hurry up. We don't get a lot of time. It's a short show. You know what I'm saying? It's like Yarrow.
Who you calling short?
All right, we're gonna keep.
You didn't need enough pesticides, bro. You would have grown taller.
That's right. That's right. We're going to keep this train rolling. We are going to roll right in to Mr. Jesse Barney. He's the founder of Barney Design Company, a graphic design company that can help your brand get to the next level. He's helped us here at High at 9 News with a number of different things, and he can help you too. That's right. It is none other than Mr. Jesse Barney.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason. Fabulous introduction. All right, my story kind of tags along with what I was talking about from Montana last week that Mr. Mark Sheldon, Dr. Mark Sheldon, I should say, brought up that Montana is having this huge overturn of legal cannabis, and so it seems in Ohio. It's out of ice. Marijuana is fully legal in Ohio, but maybe not for long. A bill was passed in the Ohio Senate last week that would see some significant changes for its recreational marijuana industry. Weed is legal in the Buckeye State, but its Republican representatives think Ohioans didn't actually want that and are trying to put some restrictions on its use less than 2 years after its legalization. Senator Stephen A. Huffman, the man behind Senate Bill 56, claims his motives are consumer and child safety. The bill would ban smoking in public spaces in an effort to eliminate secondhand smoke. Some attachments include advertising restrictions, THC concentration caps, and cultivation limits. The state's House of Representatives will be next in line to view the bill. If they approve it, the last step will be a signature from Governor Mike DeWine. Huffman hopes Ohio will join states like Colorado, California, and Washington, all of which have some level of public bans on marijuana use, be it on sidewalks, in parks, or on federal land. Many other states have similar rules in place, including Massachusetts and New Jersey, which have smoking lounges and other areas designated for public consumption. The easiest way to view how states are trying to control marijuana use in the public is somewhere between that of smoking tobacco and drinking alcohol. The latter is the more extreme side, where the public consumption is limited to bars, stadiums, and establishments with a liquor license. Smoking tobacco, on the other hand, is common in outdoor public spaces with few restrictions on its use. The long-term effects of secondhand marijuana smoke are still being studied, but it's mostly understood to have similar repercussions as tobacco. That's bullshit. That being said, marijuana can be consumed in a variety of ways, from tinctures to edibles to THC-infused drinks. Laws may be put into place restricting public consumption, but in reality, they only affect methods involving combustibles. My name's Jesse Barney, and right here on High at 9 News, this is a crazy story. I think that first of all, the headline doesn't really make sense with the article. The headline seems like they're trying to completely repeal it, but what they're really trying to do is very much limit the law so that people who use cannabis are limited in the ways that they use it and where they can use it. And this is just a slippery slope, as it is happening in Montana and has been happening for a very long time, where these rhinos try to overturn the will of the people. And so I'll toss it over to my fellow correspondents.
Yeah, Ohio, man, they're really trying to screw things up out there for the people that voted this in, and now they're trying to use their legislature to basically go back on the will of the people. It's very, very disheartening. You know what I'm saying? Very disheartening.
People, Jason, talk to them.
What's that?
I said, those are your people, Jason. Talk to them.
No, right now, Ohio is under control of a rhino regime, and so those are not my people. Those people are a bunch of never Trumpers that are running the state right now. Governor Mike DeWine and whatnot, and he may act like he wants to be part of the MAGA movement, but no, he is a far cry away from that.
Seems to me like Michigan is probably loving this.
Oh, Michigan is eating Ohio's lunch every day right now. They are just, you know what I mean? Not only just in football, but in weed sales.
I think that what it really comes down to is when people lose, what they do is everything they can to sabotage the people who beat them. Mm-hmm. And so right now the Republicans are sabotaging the will of their own people in the name of just fighting because you lost, and you got to try to win.
You know what I wonder? You actually bring up a good point. I wonder if these rhino Republicans are doing this to tarnish the Republican name because Trump is in power, and so they're trying to go against the will of the people to try to tarnish that, because these people are basically default Democrats.
No, listen, it's a weird day on High at 9 News, Jason, when I need to defend Republicans against
you are a Republican now. You've changed. You've kicked the crossover.
Yeah,
you've switched over.
I lost the bet.
Yeah.
You're right. Trump got the guy out of Russia, and for that, he will forever be not the worst, just the second worst. And so, but here's the deal. You're maligning the Republicans on this. There are 4 issues that are covered in this article.
Mm-hmm.
The first is eliminating secondhand smoke from cannabis in public spaces. Cannabis wants parity. It wants to be treated like a regular industry. If that's how we treat tobacco, let's stop the bullshit and agree that cannabis could and should be treated the exact same way.
I have no problem with cannabis being treated the same as tobacco. I'm all good with that.
I'm still on my soapbox.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Second thing, THC concentrations, okay? No, I am not in favor of THC concentrations, nor am I in favor of cultivation limits. However, if we want to look at the alcohol model as a template, potency concentrations are something that is in another industry, and the industry needs to do a better job of informing lawmakers, policymakers, why that doesn't translate for a plant where you can't really control the potency when it comes out. The third thing is advertising restrictions. Any adult who can't get behind advertising restrictions for an age-restricted product is a fucking douchebag. So let's just all agree that's actually sensible public policy. And the final thing is cultivation limits. I am pro quasi-free market if we even have one, and I'm not in favor of cultivation limits. But I don't think that it's fair to malign the Republicans who are bringing up these issues.
Well, here's the thing, Yarrow. So are you telling me that you would be in favor of eliminating THC percentages on all flower products, because it doesn't make sense to have it on those products?
Here's what I would say. I think it's very important that edibles have accurate potency testing on the labels.
I can get with that.
I think it is far less important when it comes to flower. And I think until the testing space can get its legs about it and create consistency and accuracy, I think that part is really not that important.
Well, don't you think
making sure there's no pesticides, heavy metals, fungus, blah 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 blah?
Well, don't you think though too that because when flour is still the number one item that's purchased in retail establishments overall, and the number one question that bud tenders are asked are what's the THC percentage? And so if we just eliminated that, we actually would be doing the best public service of educating the consumer of what they should be looking for just by eliminating that on the whole testing panel altogether.
A different take on that. I think if we just eliminate the massive tax structure, consumers won't be so value driven, and they'll be a lot more willing to explore different brands, cultivars, varieties, because they're not going to be so worried about getting the biggest bang for their buck.
Do you think prices would really drop if we got rid of all the tax structure? I'm not too sure that prices would actually drop. I think these brands would actually just start making money.
Well, I'd like to think that in a perfect world, that margin is divided between a savings to the consumer and companies that can actually make money, because making money is not a bad thing, and it's a noble pursuit. Go out there, scale a business, make some money, pay some health insurance for your employees, put a fucking stock plan in place, buy a boat, get your kid a dog.
I disagree with you, Yarrow, a little bit. I think this is a semantics thing that you're jumping into.
He does. He likes semantics.
And when
are you anti-semantic? What the fuck?
I'm very pro-semantic. Very pro-semantic. When you say something like we're gonna do advertising restrictions, first of all, we don't really know what that means. I'm trying to look deeper. There's not really any information even when I click through some links and go right to the Ohio Senate. It doesn't seem very clear what that means. So that could go. That's a very wide range of what's possible.
It's a slippery slope.
Advertising restrictions, and I've seen from my own home state of Montana that when you start going down that path of severe advertising restrictions, it can end up in a very, very bad place where a dispensary is not even allowed to have a website. So
I think we look no further than Juul to understand that adult products, age-restricted products, are better when there are real limitations on how they can advertise.
So that's what I'm saying is you're saying a very specific thing, which I agree with and I think is true, but I'm not sure that this bill is actually saying that. I think that what they're saying is something much broader that would allow them to come down on cannabis companies for a lot more things than just having an age gate or an age restriction or the various things that do totally make sense.
I agree with you on that, Jesse, all the way. And one thing that I did see from some of the local activists out in Ohio is that they are already putting together their ground game in anticipation of this going through. And they said that they can start beginning to collect signatures as soon as the governor signs this bill. So as soon as it finishes going through the legislature and the governor signs it, then they can start collecting signatures. And once they get those signatures, they'll be able to overturn this bill. And that's the beat from the ground from all the advocates there in Ohio. That's their plan. Well, all right, fair enough. All right, well, on that, we're going to roll into our next commercial, and we are going to be right back. I just ordered the summertime strawberry salad when added steak on top here at Anna's. Make sure you do the same thing too next time you're in downtown Long Beach. Come on down and check out Anna's joint on the 400 block of Pine Street. They have amazing selection of beers, foods, and when you come down here to Anna's, you can even challenge me to a game of shuffleboard if you want to lose. That. So, next time you're in downtown Long Beach on Pine Avenue, make sure you stop by Anna's Joint on the 400 block. Not only do they have Anna's Joint, this restaurant and bar, but they also have the amazing deli next door, and then next door to that, they have a very exotic flower shop. You may want to stop by and say hi. Anthony, there we go. All right, stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can see directly on our website at www.highatnightnews.com.
I'm Cole Preston, and today I'm at Blue Island Beer Company for the premiere of my mini documentary on legalization policy in Illinois. I've been following cannabis policy since colorful Colorado legalized it all the way back in the day, and when my home state of Illinois decided to legalize it, I just became enamored. I wondered, what would it actually look like? If you'd like to see how Illinois fell short in achieving meaningful reform in their cannabis policy, you can watch my mini-doc now at colememo.com/mini-doc.
Them for not smelling the right amount of weed.
Oh, that's a cute dream there, Jeremy. Very cute dream. Immunity. We are going to roll right into Miss Jenny Beth Dills. She's the founder of Justice Served, a 501c3 that can help justice impaired individuals, as well as a cannabis consulting company that can help your business get all straightened out, get all their metric in place and all that other stuff. That's right, it is none other than Miss Jenny Beth Dills.
And also try to help you if you were late on your licensing deadline. So
apparently she's down to drive.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, down to drive. Okay, so out of SoCal, there's been a lot that's happened this weekend. For those of you that went to the Olympics, I'm sure you saw Billy give somebody a big old beat down. Whether you agree with it or not, I like to see rights and lefts coming back instead of just keyboard warriors. But also, 4 suspects are under arrest after authorities uncovered a large-scale illegal marijuana operation spanning multiple counties. The Ventura County Sheriff's Office says the investigation began back in November after reports of a multi-residential grow operation surfaced. Detectives tracked the illegal activity to homes in Simi Valley, Los Angeles, Santa Clarita, and Acton. Then on February 20th, search warrants were executed at each suspect's residence and 2 additional properties connected to the operation. What investigators found was an elaborate setup, rooms converted into controlled grow environments, equipped with sophisticated lighting, irrigation, and fertilization systems. In total, law enforcement seized more than 1,700 plants, over 45 pounds of processed marijuana, 26 firearms, 7 ounces of concentrated cannabis, more than 300 opiate pills, there's the problem, 6 pounds of psilocybin mushrooms, and a significant amount of cash believed to be drug proceeds. The 4 suspects have identified as 34-year-old Brent Kennedy of Simi Valley, 34-year-old Jason Zikharov of Simi Valley, 38-year-old Jake Burton of Santa Clarita, and 54-year-old Reese Clark of Acton. Each faces multiple charges, including narcotics, cultivation, conspiracy, and weapons violations. All have since posted bail ranging from $20,000 to $50,000. A court hearing is scheduled for March 6. Officials say the investigation is still ongoing. So, I guess they'll still kick your door in, you guys. And this is crazy that it happened in LA. But I'll throw it back to you guys for your opinions, and I'll give mine later.
I wonder if this has anything to do, Jenny Beth, with the fact that we have a new district attorney in Los Angeles that is actually prosecuting crime now.
I would say that might have something to do with it, Jason.
I'm willing to bet that has a big deal to do with it, and I bet you this they probably have a number of locations already earmarked or cite for similar actions, and I'm pretty sure that this is not going to be the last that we hear of stories like this.
Yeah, this may not be the time to fuck around and find out in LA.
Mm-hmm. FAFO, you know what I mean? All day. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are you saying? What are you saying, Yarrow? I see you biting your tongue.
Go for it.
Well, from painful personal experience, it's not the weed, it's the guns.
Mm-hmm.
And they were definitely pills. So they were, used.
300 pills could be just 2 bottles of, Vicodin that somebody had ripped the label off of, right? But it's not the weed, it's the guns. And there's nobody on this show, unfortunately, that can say that with the same life experience that I have. And you can, in California, and I'm not proud of that. And a lot of pain in my wake as a result of those choices. And when you're in California, you can find a pro-pot jury. You can find a pro-gun jury. It's very difficult to find a pro-pot and pro-gun jury. And so when this hits the headlines, it's that 26 or 36 guns. That's what makes it look bad. And that's where the people who are, the general population who are still pro-adult use and pro-personal liberties. Yep. It changes the way that they view these cases, and it's the hardware.
Mm-hmm. So Yarrow, I've
hardware.
Yeah, just being a hardware judge and whatnot. So you did you have a little gun or was it a big gun?
I don't really want to draw people and increase the SEO of those links from 15 years ago.
I mean, if you don't answer the question, they're going to go and search it.
I had a variety.
You had a multi-pack.
That were locked up in a safe, inaccessible to me, but owned by my wife and my dad.
Interesting. They
were on the property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't have guns on the property and be.
Yeah, they that's why they say, break one law at a time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That is so boring. Okay. Whoever said that really didn't do it right.
I know,
Whoever
especially because if you have an illegal grow house, you can't like steal power or even steal cable, because then you're breaking 2 or 3 laws at the same time.
You're right about that, Yarrow. Drug dealing is not about being boring.
Mm-hmm. Oh man. You have any thoughts on this, Jeremy? Being out there in South Carolina?
Well, I mean, it sounds like someone told.
That's usually how it happens. There's always a snitch involved.
It sounds like someone is going to tell on whoever had those pills too. Well, like you said, though, it could be as simple as someone having a prescription or two. If there was 4 locations that were busted, I doubt that the pills were evenly distributed. Somebody in the operation had the pills, and it might be true of the guns too.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's how conspiracies get a little interesting, especially multiple locations, because I was in a conspiracy, so I had, I don't know, 12 indictments. A lot of them I had no idea anything about, and but it'll get sorted out in court. I can promise you that.
That part is true. That part is true. I'm Jenny. Nick is saying in the thing, he's saying that they recovered a rocket launcher. Is that true? That they recovered a rocket launcher at this place?
When I looked at the picture, it didn't necessarily look like a rocket launcher. So.
Okay.
I don't know. There were definitely assault rifles. I would have to go back and look at the picture. But I'm going to agree with Jeremy. Somebody might have said something because one of the guys got a bond that was $30,000 less than the other ones.
Oh yeah, that's how they, that's like that. That's one way to tell. Also, too, if people get handcuffed in the front as opposed to in the back, that's another way to tell too.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna keep this train rolling. We're gonna roll right into our final commercial, and we are gonna be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, I left one, and I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade. And in a GMP certified facility, so you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
All right, and we are back, you guys, and we are going to roll right into the man from the Shire who has a stack of telephone books back from the 80s, so that way he could sit high enough up on his chair, on his high chair, to make sure he can read over the computer screen today. That's right, he does cannabis, he does real estate, and when there's money in the cannabis, he does some cannabis real estate too. It is none other than Mr. Yarrow Kubrin.
I hate your intro. I'm just going to have to re-intro myself because it's so mids.
Let you tell it.
Second generation NorCal cannabis cultivator, living up here in paradise. Cannabis real estate and cannabis real estate. There is money in all real estate, and the only cannabis real estate that I'm focused on these days is helping some of the polar bears on the melting ice caps that is the Emerald Triangle, and being very selective in that.
Polar bears, huh? Polar bears, huh? That's interesting.
That's right.
It's interesting.
The cottage cultivator is to cannabis what the polar bear is to the Arctic. Beautiful and endangered.
Interesting choice of animals right there you chose, Yarrow.
Hey, I like polar bears. They're cool.
You could have chose panda bears, but instead you chose polar bears.
You're more Pikachu. I'm more peekaboo. Not so much for me. But anyway, today, Monday. Good morning. High at 9 News viewers. My article today takes us across the country over to New Jersey, where my grandfather was, where everybody tells you to forget about it. So, let's check this out. Talk about regressive policies after we covered New York and their desire to make smell probable cause again last week. Without further ado, hot off the press from NewJersey.com, New Jersey makes possessing weed a crime again under these circumstances. New Jersey could make possessing cannabis a crime again under new legislation advanced by the leaders of the state Senate that would target those who buy weed from those who are not licensed by the state. And the measure would carry penalties of up to 6 months in jail. The move is led by the original architect of the law that legalized cannabis, Senate President Nick Scutari. Democrat union. It is co-sponsored by the Senate's Republican leader, Anthony Bucco R. Morris. We have a legalized, regulated market for a reason, Scultari said during an interview Tuesday, saying consumers can buy weed in dispensaries across the state. Note, New Jersey has more than 120 dispensaries, but only 30% of the towns allow them, meaning they have 70% of their state as brick and mortar retail deserts. It is already illegal to sell cannabis without a license, but people are allowed to possess up to 6 ounces of weed. The bill, S4154, would make it a disorderly person's offense for consumers to buy weed that is not licensed by the state Cannabis Regulatory Commission. It states that this offense can carry punishments of up to 6 months in jail and fines of up to $1,000. The 3-page bill did not specify whether the punishment would be based on the amount of cannabis. New Jersey launched cannabis sales for recreational weed in April of 2022. The industry surpassed the $1 billion mark for the first time last year. In his state budget speech on Tuesday, Governor Phil Murray spoke of how much money the cannabis market made, while also mentioning cannabis legalization's social justice objectives, which was to stop putting people in jail for 6 ounces of weed. He also praised Scultari for creating the cannabis law. In just 5 years, cannabis has gone from destroying lives in the form of excessive criminal sentences to helping save lives, the Democratic governor said. And by the way, this simply would not have been possible without the leadership of Senate President Nick Scultari. Now, I wonder what that governor has to say about all the other programs in all the other states that did not include the New Jersey Senate President, Nick Scultari. Scultari's new cannabis bill would have a disproportionate impact on the diverse populations Murphy trumpeted in his speech, according to Reverend Charles Boyer of Salvation and Criminal Justice, an organization that played a role in putting criminal justice reform into the cannabis laws. We're definitely not in favor of any recriminalization, Boyer said. Absolutely not. Scultari's bill would need to pass the full state Senate and Assembly and be signed by the governor to become law. Murphy's office declined comment on the issue. Senate Republicans did not respond to a request for comment. Some Senate Democrats opposed the bill, noting that the state still bans home cultivation for cannabis, terrible, or homegrown, and it is allowed in most states that have legalized weed. I think we need to accomplish home grows first, said State Senator Vin Gopal D. Mammoth, who has sponsored legislation that would allow home cultivation of cannabis. I think continuing to criminalize it makes it a lot harder. Medical cannabis patients have lobbied for home grow, citing the high prices in New Jersey and their inability to access consistent strains that can meet their medical needs. Criminal defense and lawyers expressed skepticism about the bill. Part of the bill that mentions knowingly buying cannabis means prosecutors would have to prove someone knew ahead of time that the cannabis was unlicensed, which could be a steep uphill climb, said criminal defense attorney Michael Hoffman, who also handles cannabis expungement cases. Another concern, Hoffman said, was the proposed law's potential to circumvent aspects of the cannabis legalization that prevented police from using the smell of cannabis to conduct searches. Since smell is subjective and difficult to refute in court, criminal lawyers successfully pushed for a provision in the original cannabis legalization bill that banned police from using it to conduct traffic stops or pull people over. That received pushback from law enforcement. This could give them a reason, if they smell it, to confirm whether it's legally obtained or if they find it on your person or to see it in plain view, Hoffman said. At that point, you get into a longer, more difficult interaction with law enforcement. Hoffman also suggested that law enforcement could use the pretense of checking whether or not cannabis comes from a licensed or unlicensed source to do the same type of stop and frisk policies that the original legislation was meant to prevent. Gopal said the bill went against the intent of legalization and that the industry was still falling short of criminal justice reform. Legalization is still too corporate, and I understand people did it for profit, he said. Companies came in, municipalities got revenue, but I don't believe we've accomplished the criminal justice piece yet. Okay, a lot to unpack here. What do you guys think about this?
Well, this New Jersey, man, you know, they had such a good program, and they are just about to screw it up every single which way. They're talking about increasing the taxes, and now they're talking about going back in time on their policy enforcement and whatnot. It just seems like they're about to. They had a good market, and it sounds like they're doing everything to screw it all the way up.
This just almost made no sense. Like, what? How would you even enforce this? You just, anytime anybody smells like weed, you're gonna pull them over and say, "Papers, please. Show me your medical card," or show me.
Yeah, you would have to. It would have to be in a state compliant container that tracked, or obviously was in the track and trace system. It'd be the same as prescription medication. If you take an opioid prescription medication out of its container, then they can allege that it wasn't acquired through licit means. The challenge I have is too many lawmakers are taking a victory lap over standing up state programs and acting like because they've got a state program, now they can put the gauntlet down with the unregulated market as if these state programs have been wildly successful.
But doesn't that just make it so that any person who has cannabis on them, all of a sudden you have probable cause to check whether or not it's legal?
Yep.
So that's Gestapo stuff. Like, that's insane.
It is. They're about to reverse the whole policy. You're not going to want to get caught in New Jersey. And Uncle Polly 420 in the chat, he says, Jason, the Jersey program sucks. Yeah, but people are making money, bro. People are making money, and a lot of people aren't complaining about it. So you know what I mean.
This is why I always say that regulation without legalization is just prohibition 2.0, and this is an extreme example of that. And this is exactly where it can go in every state if they want it to.
Absolutely. I mean, it seems to me like it's just it's all the people who spent money on the licenses protecting themselves. Same thing as the Los Angeles case is really the same thing. It's just people who have paid all that money and jumped through all those hoops are trying to corner their market so only their product gets bought. I mean, it's that's pretty basic economic concept. Do I think it's right? Absolutely not. But also, just because it's a bill doesn't mean it's going to get passed either. I think they're going to have a real hard time passing that.
I think they're going to have a good time passing it because they got a Democrat, a Republican, and a governor who is,
clamping down,
extolling the virtues of the person who is putting this forward. To me, that looks like bipartisan support from lawmakers who've never been operators, and they're trying to do something to show that they're supporting the regulated industry. So they've got the benefit of the optics of passing this to say, see, we're trying to stand up, support, and grow our licit versus illicit market. The challenge I have is this is just Prohibition 3.0, because the thing is that 6 ounces is not that much cannabis. So again, this is enforcement against the end user / consumer / patient. And the travesty here, and this I think was touched on briefly in the article, but I think should be reiterated on the show. The travesty here is no homegrown, no bueno. You don't have a program that prioritizes low-cost cannabis, affordable access, and patient care if people can't put 1 or 2 plants in a bucket in their backyard. And so if you've got no home grow and you're forcing patients, maybe patients who have high dosage amounts, to have to go to the dispensaries, which are only in 30% of the towns in your state anyway, this doesn't make any sense. And then you're going to put these people in jail for 6 months? Tell me how that's going to pencil out.
Very true. Crazy. Very true. It's a sad state of affairs for New Jersey. They're taking these basically these Illinois policies and trying to reverse their course and bring them over there. And I just don't see it working well.
If you're in New Jersey, stick your illegal weed in a legal bag and drive around with it that way.
Hey,
what's crazy is you could have weed you bought from the store that's not in the bag and get arrested for it, and put illegal weed in the bag, and they'll never know the difference.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep. Just go over to their packaging district and buy yourself some packaging, and you'll be all right.
Yeah.
But what they really need is, and every state needs, I think if we're going to look at cannabis through the lens of like a medical patient, if you can't have a home grow program that allows people to cultivate on their own or with a caregiver if they're physically or whatever not capable, a modest amount of cannabis, a little bit. If people can't even do that, I don't think any policymaker can give themselves a congratulations on the back, pat on the back, say that they've moved the needle substantially. If you have no homegrown program, you have fundamentally missed the mark on creating a paradigm that allows for legalization and a lack of criminalization.
Well, you have anything you want to say on this, Jenny, before we move on?
No.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. We are going to roll right into our guest correspondent today, Mr. Jeremy Grove. Jeremy Grove is a former prisoner of war, author of Legalized, and constituent of LPP. That's right. We've been doing some stories on LPP, and so we wanted to present another side of the story. He's also an honorary board member of Freedom Grow Forever and owner of Rivalry Moving, advocate for all nonviolent cannabis vendors, and official hype man for the May 1st Great American Rally for Cannabis Freedom, coming to you live from Charleston, South Carolina. That's right, it is none other than Mr. Jeremy Grove.
Yeah. All right, so obviously there's been a lot of talk on all this. I wrote this based on my personal experience as an inmate with nonprofit organizations through my incarceration. My name is Jeremy Grove, inmate 32201-171 of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. To a lot of America, that is all I will ever be. To a special group of people, I am looked at as a victim of the war against a plant that is the cure to what ails us. I believe all cannabis is a medicine and Americans should have the right to use cannabis. I believe everyone in prison for cannabis deserves a completely fresh start. I believe that all cannabis convictions should be wiped off the books and everyone whose sentences have been impacted by those crimes should be resentenced. I know I am not alone in this belief because of the support I received through my darkest times. The term cannabis prisoner of war was introduced to me through a Freedom Grow Forever newsletter. At the time, I was sitting in a 6x9 cell with a desk, bunk beds, the toilet sink combo, and a shower. It was the beginning of COVID, and transfer of inmates had been completely shut down. I was living the harshest punishment in America, and I certainly felt it, and I felt forgotten. To have a newsletter that was so incredibly thoughtful for someone in the position I was in. They had little word puzzles, the story of Randy Lanier, Stephanie Landa, shout out to her, Jason is friends with her. Had pictures of herself putting commissary envelopes in the mail. I realized in that moment I wasn't alone, that there were people who cared about me and that felt that injustice that I felt. They saw me as a brother and friend, even though we had never met. I fished, the act of sliding items under the door and through the hallway using thread from blankets. The newsletter to all the inmates in my range. With my time, I started writing, but to make the security pen stable enough to hold, I needed the sticker off of a bottle of Head & Shoulders. The only things we could buy off commissary were hygiene items. I didn't have money on my books as far as I knew, but I checked the box of Head & Shoulders and hoped. When I received the commissary, I got the shampoo and a receipt that showed I had some money left. As it turned out, Last Prisoner Project had put money on my books, which is how I made the pen and then I ended up writing the 620-page novel that's right behind me. After 11 months in the SHU and transit, I ended up in Fort Dixon, New Jersey. Upon my arrival, I started receiving postcards from prisoner writing campaigns. Every day, 10 to 12 postcards for a week. They had been sitting in the mailroom at Fort Dix waiting for me to arrive. The emotions I felt after that experience I had just been through were profound. Strangers expressing sympathy for my situation, sharing my belief that cannabis is the cure for opiate addiction. The overriding theme was, we read your story and agree with you. To this day, I still do not know what they were reading from. I don't know what was in the bio they read. I was in prison. I had no idea what was going on out here, but I knew Last Prisoner Project and Freedom Grow Forever were organizations with which I shared a common goal. Since I was released, I attended the National Cannabis Festival in 2023 and helped at the LPP booth. It was incredible to meet the people who had supported me while I was in my darkest times. In 2024, I was able to take a much more active approach to activism for those still in prison for the plant. I attended the lobby week and was able to meet lawmakers. The candlelight vigil was an absolute highlight of my life. It is what led me to spending time in Washington with Travis, making the video, interviewing people about their awareness of people being in prison for cannabis. To even have a community and people who believe I was wrongfully incarcerated, that I'm more than just a felon, that I deserve a place in this movement, means so much to me. This leads me to today. I'm making a call for unity. I'm calling for 10 ex-cannabis prisoners to take on the cases of 10 individuals still incarcerated, learn about their cases like only people who have been through the system can, talk to their families, read through their transcripts, and look for what they have accomplished in prison. Use an action in front of the White House to create attention for the 10 individuals still inside. Try to our best to get Alice Johnson to hear our pleas and take our request to the President of the United States. I'm a cannabis activist because I carry the pain, I carry the experience, I carry the love of having strangers believe in me brought. That's why I write, everything I do, everything I centers around one core belief, that together we can change the world.
Well said.
Oh, yeah.
Well said, Jeremy. Well said.
So that's why I am the way I am about that world, because when you're in that position and you've got nobody and you're actually living out prohibition and you're living out the harms, having anybody that is standing up for you on the outside, whether or not they do all the money for, like, it's just so irrelevant when you're in that position and in that moment. And I think that anybody that shares that belief, I will never have anything bad to say about. I can promise you that. So that includes people that don't agree with me about these organizations. You know, if you care about this, you're on my team because Ken Paxton's out there. So.
Fair enough, and that's a good different differing opinion in regards on this. Now, one thing, THC expert in the chat, Jeremy, he says that you received $10,000 from LPP, I'm imagining, and he's saying that now the inmates are only currently receiving $1,000, and that's a big differentiator in what inmates are receiving to live off of.
Listen, I mean, I understand that. I received $5,000. My daughter received $5,000.
Got it. Okay.
Which is part of their grant program, right? Now, the thing about nonprofit organizations are that they have to put programs in writing, what their program is, what you need to be like.
That's true.
This is not just like, oh, we put money on people's books as we feel necessary, but like there are, you know, whatever. Now, do I think that dropping 5,000 to 1,000, like, do I find like that's not my, I don't work for an organization. I don't have any say in that. As an overall outlier, do I like that? No. I mean, I wish that they all got that kind of money. Of course I do. But I'll also say this, the only organizations that ever gave me money while I was incarcerated were Last Prisoner Project and were Freedom Go Forever. And I was not in the position that some people are, but a lot of people, I believe, are in my position where $300 quarterly does make a big difference while you're in prison.
I agree. I can agree with that.
Spending $50 when they had a chance. I mean, I'm talking about like the reason why I was able to eat food that wasn't what the chow hall did was because that money got put on my books. So while is any organization perfect? Do I agree with every decision that any of these organizations make? No, absolutely not. But as a whole, are they a good thing? For sure. And there's also like the awareness side of it, right? It's like people don't know that people are still in prison for weed. They don't understand that people are in the position that I am. So anybody who brings awareness to that, I'm always going to be behind. And that includes Travis, that includes Jenny, that includes Luz Garmazo, that includes 40 Tons, that includes, you know, anybody that has the passion to try to fight for people that are still incarcerated. I'm I'm gonna back them. Even there's another rally going on. Craig Cecil, who was released by Trump, he's doing a rally April 17th. If you don't like Last Prisoner Project, you don't like those organizations, go to that one. The point is that people need to make a show of unity, that it is not okay that our people are still inside. As I put in my article, what I see as the vision to make this happen is having 10 inmates take on 10 cases and spotlight those cases so that people see those cases and they feel the injustice of a single case, and it makes them feel compassion for the mission as a whole. That's just how I envision it. It doesn't have to be that way, but that's what I'm fighting for.
Fair. Go ahead, Jenny.
I think, obviously we're not going to poo on the fact that, people are getting help, right? I think that's amazing, and I'm glad that made a huge impact for you, Jeremy. Like, that's really important. I am just going to call to action for these organizations, though. Stop gatekeeping stories, because you'll notice that they'll pick a prisoner, and that's their prisoner, and they hold on to them because that's their figurehead, which they use to raise funds. So these aren't mascots for your organization just to raise money on so that you can spend it however you want, traveling all over the world, giving talks or whatever the fuck you're doing on, inflated travel budgets. These are people who are sitting in cages for a plant that never hurt anyone. So I think I'd like to call on them to stop gatekeeping inmate stories. Like, the only way that we're going to get the amount of national attention and attention around the world for these people is to band together and everybody scream these same fucking names. I'm pissed to death that I have taken every freaking trade show that I do and taken those damn letters to have them signed. Happy to do that. But when I asked for the list of names so that I could help broadly publicize those names, I was told that I couldn't have the list because someone else might get them. That's embarrassing, and that is not advocacy. And I would just say, guys, just make sure that as you're raising all this money, that you're giving it to the people that deserve it, and that's the prisoners. I'm not going to shit for putting money on books. I think that's a great thing to do. I think that, those things need to happen. But we just need to be more aware, because as we see more stories come about of the misuse of funds and things like that, people who are donors are going to be like, maybe not. I'll just go give to the whales.
Yarrow, what do you got to say, Yarrow?
If I may, so Jeremy, I didn't spend as much time in jail because of cannabis, and so my heart goes out, to all the people in your family who were affected by your journey. I know you could handle it, but I know there were probably some people who it was harder on them than it was on you, and
of course,
and so and the fact that that's happening in 2023 is just it's barbaric, right? I don't think anybody can take away from the first person narrative you've provided about the benefit that Last Prisoner Project was able to give you, and as much
Freedom
as
Grow. I never leave them out. Freedom Grow too.
And so those organizations, and as much as it's not about money on books is a lifeline, and so it really matters, and I'm glad that they were able to do that for you. And in everything you said, I think it helped to paint a fuller spectrum picture of that organization, but I don't necessarily think it negated the recent criticism. And so what I think is important is, how do we hold organizations accountable? How do we not have cancel culture or demonize bad choices or questionable choices, but how do we also ask for more or demand for better? And so $1,000 to go from 5,000 to 1,000, nobody's cheerleading that, but it's a substantial drop, not a minuscule percentage drop.
Well, Yarrow, especially when their revenues have skyrocketed up.
So I think that the goal here, and what I appreciate about what Jeremy said, is the unity of, like, there are a lot of people there are a lot of people who are trying to keep the focus on getting cannabis prisoners out of jail, and we can't have infighting, squabbling, differences of execution, differences of vision be the thing that becomes the story, because that's not the story. And within that, how do we hold organizations accountable? How do we ask for more? How do we say that's not okay, but that doesn't make you inherently malicious? And so I think that it was good that Jeremy shared his experience because that's real and nobody can take that away. And LPP and the other organization you mentioned,
Freedom Grow Forever.
Freedom Grow Forever, they did that. And here's a man speaking about that. Like, this is his testimony. Nobody can take that away.
Yep.
And to go from 5K to 1K, and as Jenny said, to sort of try to monopolize the limelight around certain poster child prisoners is a practice that it doesn't really matter what organization is doing it. It's not optimal. And it's not optimal for the exact goal that Jeremy came here to remind everybody of, which is ultimately at the end of the day, in the bigger picture, our goals are all in alignment, which is to get people out of jail who are serving time for cannabis.
And that's why my idea of having the 10 prison, this is why I came up with the 10 former inmates representing 10 inmates that are still incarcerated as individuals, looking into their stories, getting to know them, getting to know their families, right? Because what more powerful message is there than someone who's been there before fighting for someone who's still there, right? And what it also does is all of these inmates have their own experiences since they got out of prison. Some of them still work with the organization. Some have their own organization. They have their own brands. And they can bring all of those things with them, which gives everyone at the table a fair share of credit. Because as I champion around calling people, I mean, I spend hours on the phone with different people and everything. The common theme I get is everybody wants to make sure that they get their credit for what they feel like they've done. And that's understandable, right? We all want to benefit. When you're talking about like gatekeeping, it's like, okay, well, every business is trying to get you to come to their business and not go to other businesses. Any nonprofit, like the Red Cross, doesn't want you to donate to Blood Connection. So, that's inherent in the concept of having an organization is, you're going to be competing for the same things, right? And I understand that. But through unity, through having a voice and showing up and doing these things, you're having a chance then to promote your own brand, your own organization, your own things. And I don't think that anyone is going to stop that from happening if people do it. When you're talking about like gatekeeping, I mean, these guys are in prison. Listen, you can look them up on bop.gov, look them up by name, get their inmate numbers, send them a letter, put your email address in there, and I promise you every single one of them is going to write you an email because they're in there and they don't have anything better to do. And then you can get to know them and you can tell their story and you can champion their story on the internet. You can get to know them. You can do, no one's stopping people from doing those things. When I was in prison, I was a heavy Freedom Grow Forever and Last Prisoner Project recruiter because those were the organizations I knew about because they had reached out to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like they reached out to me. So any organization that had reached out to me, I would have been when I got somewhere, right? When I got to a new prison and I'm like, yeah, I'm here for weed. There's always someone that's like, oh, this dude over in dorms 3, he's here for weed too. So when I go talk to them, what are we going to talk about? Oh, we're in prison for weed. What's the first thing I'm going to say? Oh, well, these organizations, Last Prisoner Project, they put money on my books. Freedom Grow Forever sends me a newsletter. You know what I mean? So I'm talking about those things because that's what I knew. Right? People forget that people in prison do not have access to the technology that we do. They get their news off of CNN and Fox News and things like that. If it doesn't make it to that, they don't know about it. It's not like they're sitting on their phone scrolling all day and know about all this stuff. So you really have to make an effort to reach out to the people in prison to get those stories. And, for someone like me, I was in there and a lot of those guys ended up on Last Prisoner Project and Freedom Grow Forever's list. But they wouldn't have known about it if I hadn't talked to them, right? So, there's multiple sides to all of this. Another thing about that is as more people get on these lists, that becomes more and more expensive. You know what I mean? Like more money. Now, like I said, I'm not here like that. This that is not my topic. I'm not going to judge anybody else's money or any of those things. It's just not part of who I am as a person, because like I said, I have one mission: to release all cannabis risk. I own a moving company. I make no money off of cannabis whatsoever. Yes, there is truth that when I first got out of prison, Last Prisoner Project gave me $5,000. They also approved my daughter for a $5,000 grant, which is another one of their programs for the children of cannabis prisoners, right? So I did use those programs that got me money. That's not why I talk about what I talk about. I talk about it because I believe it. And that's just, that's my personal experience. Like I said, I'm not here to preach. I'm not here to change anyone's mind, but I am here to express my personal experience as an inmate and dealing with organizations. But I love everyone in this chat. I love Travis. I love anybody who has a passion for this issue. It's just the truth.
I think there's just something that we need to remember, which is outside of cannabis advocacy, there are metrics that have been established for charities to see how well they're managing the money they take in. And so you can look at these nonprofits and you can say what percentage gets spent on administration, what percentage gets spent on direct recipient benefit. And I don't have that information, so I can't tell you how LPP stacks up against somebody else. What I can tell you is that's the metric. It's already been established in other organizations that are tasked with making the world a better place. And I think as the cannabis industry evolves and matures, and as advocacy for the release of cannabis prisoners evolves and matures, those are the metrics that we should be applying that have already been established outside of this space, which is for every dollar that comes in, how is that spent? What percentage is administration? What percentage is staff? What percentage is direct recipients? Because if you go from $5,000 a prisoner to $1,000 a prisoner and it gets reduced, but you are all of a sudden helping an exponential amount of prisoners, there's an argument that that's actually benefit, that it's a benefit to have $1,000 a person for 10 million people than it is to have $5,000 a person for 1 million people. So without that information, I think it's hard to really have a fact-based analysis.
Interesting. Well, I mean, I can do just some basic math, and going down from $1,000 when you got $3 million, I can tell that there's a big discrepancy there. But that's just my personal opinion on it. You know what I mean? And LPP is welcome to come in and you know what I'm saying, come and speak for themselves. But the floor is open. They can reach out to us, and more than happy to have them on sometime. And Jeremy, I really am glad that you're home and able to be with your families now, and I really appreciate you for coming on today and speaking your story, and for this call to action. I wish that one day we all could get together and sing Kumbaya. I just don't see that as being a reality, but nonetheless, I'm not gonna poo-poo on that dream at all, or that vision, because if it could happen, that would be amazing. And we did get a question for you, Jeremy, before we close out, from 40 Tons, who says, Jeremy, how do you suggest finding those names? And he was referring to all the names of the prisoners that you alluded to earlier.
Like the 10?
I think he's just talking about in general. In general, how would someone go about finding the names? Yeah, how would someone go about finding these names of these nonviolent cannabis offenders if people wanted to just benefit some of them on their own behalf and not go through any of these groups?
Well, I mean, I would say I know that, like I have a 40 Tons free Kevin Allen up there. Kevin Allen is currently serving 35 years, got dropped down from a life sentence for $20 worth of weed in the same district that Mike Johnson was, who celebrated the release of the Russian prisoner, but is leaving this guy in prison for 35 years for less weed. But you can go to, Last Prisoner Project, Freedom Grow Forever, 40 Tons, like they have the names of prisoners right there, all over their pages.
You said you could go to a .gov website?
So if they're in the feds, you can go to bop.gov, right? And it has inmate search. And you can put in and you can put anybody's name that's on those things that are in federal prison.
Oh,
and
you have to have.
Yeah, you gotta have their name. That's not what he's saying. So 40 Tons is saying as follow up. He's saying in general, it's tough to find many names, and the gatekeepers won't share. He's saying.
Yes, that's the issue. And so, the way that people get on the Freedom Grow list, for example, is their friend or their family member will provide Freedom Grow with their inmate number and their name and their charges. And they go from there. And that's kind of how you generate those lists to begin with. So it does make it very difficult if there is gatekeeping going on. In that same breath, fucking free Parker Coleman.
Mm-hmm.
Free Parker Coleman, free Edwin Rubis, free Frank Rogers, all these guys. I will say this though, Jason, I sent you a list of prisoners.
I haven't. Yeah. If anyone wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to.
Put it
you know what I'm
on
saying?
your website, and there's your list.
So in regards to that, 40 Tons also says we have about 10 to 20 names, but we're referring to the hundreds of people that are locked up in regards to. And
Freedom Grow Forever has the most people on their list, but it's still only 200, and there's thousands more. The problem is that there's no easy way. There's no easy way to.
That's true.
You can't
That's
Google
true.
search. You can't Google search
That's
marijuana
true.
trafficking, right? And find all the people that were arrested from it.
Mm-hmm.
So it has, like I'm talking about, like when I was in prison, when I found cannabis prisoners, then I would tell them about Last Prisoner Project. I'd tell them about Freedom Grow.
Mm-hmm.
I'd get the information they needed to apply and all of those things. But really the only way to spread that word inside of prison is through inmates talking to one another and then them reaching out and getting the forms and stuff. There's just not I wish that the government had it where it's like, okay, I'll look up all weed prisoners and there's just a big list of weed prisoners. That's not how they operate, because they don't separate weed from other crimes for the most part. It's just, trafficking, drug trafficking. So there's the logistics behind that. But like I said, I sent you a list. If you can find, if you can take care of the list that I sent you, you're doing pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But that, and because there's state cases too. And there's also what is a nonviolent drug offense? Does that include someone that got caught? For instance, like the ones that Jenny read, right?
Mm-hmm.
People in California. Some organizations would never accept those people because they have guns and they have the opiates on their case. Other organizations are going to look past it and be like, okay, but
Well, yeah, that's the thing, Jeremy, is that if they caught 10 people in that wrap up, you know what I mean, and they caught all those guns and they caught those other drugs or whatnot, that could have only affected half of those people, but yet those other half that were nonviolent would just get shooed from a lot of organizations because they were wrapped up in that overall case overall, and so they one charge fits all as opposed to the people that are actually being charged with each individual actual crime that they got caught with. And most of these people too, Jeremy, are incarcerated for conspiracy above anything, and that makes it even more difficult for this, especially when we're going through the clemency process and trying to give people pardons and stuff like that. It's a whole big bunch of things that have to sift through, and tons of hours of paperwork and whatnot, and it is a tedious task. And so shout out to all the people that are working on the criminal justice reform aspect and helping to get these people out, because it is a very, very daunting task, and I got a lot of respect for all the people that do work on it overall.
Ellis Johnson. We need it. If we can get 10 egregious, obvious, nonviolent marijuana cases that have terrible sentences on her desk with the support of 10 inmates, we have multiple that got released by Trump already. I really believe that we can make this happen.
Yep.
And I just believe that. And it really comes down to unity. It comes down to working together and making this happen. And because all the things you said are very real, but a lot of them don't have a simple right now answer.
Exactly.
But I believe that on May 1st or April 17th, I don't care what day it is, I want it to happen. Right. I want these people to go home to their families. I want them to be able to get on your show and talk about their experience. We would love
to have them once in. I know. I mean, I hosted a welcome home party for Alice Johnson in America's Living Room when Trump first pardoned her, and we had a fantastic event there at the Trump International Hotel, and all I can say is weed for the people, because we're trying to bring all of these people home.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm here, because I know you guys, like, I'm not really left or right. I'm get cannabis prisoners out at all costs and call out anybody who disagrees with that, including the Democrats, because the Democrats like to act like they're on our side, but they ain't about getting prisoners out. They're just not. And you know, Trump's about getting prisoners out.
He
you
is.
got to convince them that the case was bad.
A lot of that though is you can't fault Trump on that. A lot of it is because of the Bureau of Prisons and how the Bureau of Prisons goes through all this paperwork, because a lot of times in those meetings, you know what I'm saying, like it's rapid fire. It's da 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 da. You know what I'm saying? Trump's yes, Trump no.
But here's the problem. You can't be about getting prisoners out of cannabis while you're making women prisoners with their relationship with their doctor. It just
stop the ridiculousness, bro. Stop the ridiculousness on that, bro. That's not even an appropriate bring up during this whole conversation. That doesn't even make any sense. Yeah, he's trying to advocate for abortion, and abortion is death.
Doing a great job for cannabis prisoners, and what I'm telling you is that he's putting women's reproductive health care access.
That's not reproductive health care access, bro. That's killing babies. It's killing babies. It's killing death.
About personal freedoms.
Straight up death, bro. Stop the ridiculousness.
That disconnect.
We're not here to
be okay with that.
We're not here to talk about killing babies, Yarrow.
What do you think, Jesse?
That was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Man, I really support everything you said. To be very frank, I have my own grievances with LPP and the way that they spend money. Clearly, that's not. It's not mutually exclusive to your experience, and the fact that the prisoners that do get money from them, that is just a good thing, and that is good work. I do wish that organizations like them that pull in millions of dollars would allocate more of the money for that rather than their own marketing. And I think that a lot of the marketing that they do is spent on organizations like MJ BizCon and various trade shows. And those trade shows actually are also culprits of that. So those trade shows should be giving them free spots.
I agree with that.
And it kind of goes up the list. There's a lot of people who benefit from and have jobs with these organizations, and they weren't in prison. And I would rather you be the president of LPP and get a good salary, having been in prison and having the heart that you have and being able to look at the money the way that you would and run something like that than someone like Mary Bailey. That's my personal opinion.
Fair enough. That's fair criticism. Anything else? Any closing words you want to share, Yarrow? That's not abortion related.
I want to say thank you for having me on and letting me share my experience, because I think you know, having like. There is no other movement. There's no other sect of cannabis of prisoners. There's no one else in prison, right, that has a movement of people trying to get them out. There's no movement of like rapists, release all rapists, or release all. There's nothing else. Like releasing all cannabis prisoners is a completely unique movement that is really just a recent, you know, over probably the past 10 years thing that has caught on. And just to have that community be there for me and listen to me and give me a voice means the world to me. So thank you for letting me on. Thank you for letting me share my story. And let's get these people home. Let's come together and work together and put things aside and get these people home. Right, left, grievances, no matter what, because getting these people home is the most important thing.
I can agree on that. Any last words, Jenny Beth or Yarrow, before we close out?
No. Free Parker Coleman.
All right, free Parker Coleman.
I'm super
Parker Coleman went to high school where I caught my case.
I'm super grateful that Jeremy's on today, and you know, my thoughts go out to everybody in his sphere who had to support him so that he could get home and in one piece. And I'm really appreciative that that the responsibility is to keep the door open, put our foot in it, and help other people to get out. So great job, High at 9 News, to have this caliber of guest on today.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. And thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Aim High Hemp Distribution and Catalyst for helping us keep the lights on over here. And thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing today. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for coming in as our guest correspondent on Monday. And thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do all this. Thank you to Cloud Media partners Anthony out there in the metaverse, out in the fields, in the thicket. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show.
Thank you, guys.
Good story, Jeremy.